Well, when we pulled private parts out this last time, this is what I saw on the ground. This is underneath where the rear end was. So it appears that we're going to have to do some inspection and see just how bad and where this is leaking from. It's from the rear end, so it's got to be either from probably the input yoke would be my guess. So we may have to replace the rear end on that. I do have a few spares. Crap. Well, howdy folks, and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we've got Ole Pvt Parts here up on the ramps, and we are going to address the oil leak issue that we have coming from the rear differential. So yeah, let's get started on it. All right, we can see that we've got some leaks, or at least some evidence of leaking, possibly right around here. But the main leak that is causing the dripping is right here. And so we are gonna have to go ahead and probably replace this seal. So you can see we've got a mess to clean up underneath there. I don't like working on cruddy, muddy messes. So we're going to take Pvt Parts out, take them out a little further on the slab, and get some pressure washing done. Okay, now that we've got it pressure washed, and there was a lot of mud up underneath this thing from the trip that we took to the old mine, and I'll put a link to it up here somewhere. So, any rate, let's see how we did. Well, it looks like we didn't do as good as we thought. And we still have a lot of mud packed in and around some of these spots here. So I guess we'll have to fire up the pressure washer and go at it again. It's amazing how much mud gets packed into these things from just one little mud puddle. And you can see that is an issue there, frame issue, that we are going to have to deal with at another time. This was all damage that was done to Pvt Parts before I got him. So I don't know if it was the previous owner or the guy that he bought it from, but at any rate, looks like we got to fire up the pressure washer and hit some more of these spots again. But this area here, you can see we've got, well, we still got quite a bit of mud there. So, back to it. All right, well, now that I've gone ahead and blasted mud and water and everything all over the camera, all over the inside of the shop, we're going to let things dry off a bit before we start to do any work. But let's go ahead and climb back underneath there and see if we got the spots that needed to be cleaned out. Okay, yeah, much better there, but still got a lot of stuff up in here that I didn't get, and I think that may be just because that is dirt and grease and oil, and so we will have to clean that stuff off once we get this differential pulled. I'm not real certain what we're going to oh, hang on. So I'm not 100% certain on how we're going to resolve this issue. I'm going to check in the manual and see what the procedures are for replacing that seal. If it's not that difficult to replace that seal, we're just going to replace that outer seal there. The other ones that show signs of seepage and wetness around them, they're really not that big of a deal. It's if it's not dripping from the leak, then that would be considered a class 1 leak, and that one you can just run. Well, we are going to end up leaving Ole Pvt Parts up here on the ramps tonight to dry. I wanted to let you guys know that videos for the next few weeks from me are going to be a little sparse. I took a job, seasonal job, and I've done it for several years, hauling onions for one of the local farmers here. I was hoping that I could go ahead and do a video for you guys of, just kind of what that's all about. But they have a non-disclosure agreement that we have to sign when we hire on there. And I even asked permission to go ahead and do that, and they would not allow it. So, I don't know, there may be something about, harvesting the onions the way they do that they think is, if it gets out that, I don't know. So at any rate, I'm not going to mention the name of the company. They are a fairly large company. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. And was hoping that I could do something like that for you guys. But I understand their position. And, as long as I am employed by them, I have to go ahead and abide by the rules. But at any rate, the onion harvest usually runs between about this time in August. Which this is at the time of filming this, it's almost the end of August, and usually runs to the middle to the end of October. And the shift is 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, we had a short day today, so I was able to get a little bit more filming in than I had originally planned on. So at any rate, because of that, I'm just not going to be able to spend as much time on filming these things as I would like. So, any rate, but please stick around, because we will, we're going to go ahead and finish up what we have to do on the differential on this. to go ahead and get it sealed up so that we can start driving them again. Right now, with that leak that we had, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to risk blowing up the rear end, running it out of oil. So at any rate, we'll be back. You guys will, it'll just, yeah. So at any rate, we'll be back in a second for you guys, maybe a day or two for me. So at any rate, stick around. All right, folks, it's the next day. We are here. We've got private parts up on the ramps inside the shop. So I'm hoping we can get the drive lines pulled loose without needing to put him up on jack stands. So we're going to give this a try, and we're going to get this differential pulled out. We'll show you. It is not that difficult a job. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the half shafts loose and get those off of there. You're just going to need a 1/2-inch wrench, and it's going to have to be an open end wrench. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to do this. As long as they're not all rusty, you should be able to loosen them up and just pull them off. But these we may have to go ahead and loosen and pull these off. Yeah, each. Now, when you're doing this, you're going to want to be careful. And we still have a lot of little bits of dirt coming down, so when you're doing this, it's a good idea to have safety glasses on. My glasses here are plastic lenses, so they're not safety glasses per se, but I kind of need them to be able to work on stuff up close. You may want to get a screwdriver to pop this stuff loose. I haven't gone ahead, well, yeah, I actually have. I have had to pull the half shafts loose from the rear end before, so. Grab a screwdriver or a small pry bar. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to move this yoke kind of out of the way here to get the nuts and washers off. Alright, once you get the nuts and washers off, then you'll need to pry, or pull these these little U-bolts off. Now comes the fun part. Okay, you need to hold these caps, because if you don't, they will fall off, and you will end up losing needle bearings out of the U-joints. And you do not want to lose needle bearings out of the U-joints. Alright, once that is loose, you can just kind of push them up out of the way and they'll kind of hang there. Alright. The next thing we got to pull is we're going to pull the drive line. It's easier to do if you got the socket like this. Sometimes you got to break them loose with the wrench, which I set down on the floor somewhere. But it's just 4 bolts. And it'll come right off. With this, you got to do the same thing. You've got to go ahead and make sure that you don't let these caps fall off, because if you do, these ones here, I don't know what happened to my open-end wrench. There it is. And if you've got the parking brake set and the parking brake is in good shape, it makes this getting these bolts loose a lot easier, and it's going to make them a lot easier to tighten up. So you may want to get a piece of some black electrical tape or something like that. Matter of fact, I'm going to go grab some to go ahead and hold these caps in place. Because, like I said, you do not want those caps to come off of there. So let me go grab some tape real quick. Now, you want to remember that the drive shaft is a slip joint into the back of the transmission or transfer case. And so if you pull the drive shaft out, it is going to start dumping gear oil out of your transmission. If you feel you need to pull the drive shaft out, then you're going to want to you're going to need to drain your transmission first. And it is kind of a tight fit here, so you got to kind of wiggle that stuff around. But you get your drive line out of the way and we'll get the other half shaft pulled off, but I don't think you guys need to see that. Alright, now the next thing you're going to do, we've got a bolt here, here, and here. You're going to take a ratchet or an impact 5/8 socket, and unbolt all 3 of these bolts. And you should, well, looks like there is a bolt and nut. So yeah, we're going to need a 5/8 wrench. That is one of the things that why you need to make sure everything is clean up in here, because the dirt will go ahead and kind of accumulate. And we still got mud and dirt falling down on us here. We got one more to go. So you might want to go ahead and have a floor jack underneath it. These are not that heavy, but you know, if you're worried about it, now this one here, we need to get an extension on it. Oh, helps to get the nut out of the socket too. There we go. And there we go. Differential is out. So we are definitely going to need to clean up a bunch of this stuff up in here. You know, a lot of dirt in there, so we'll get a scraper, scrape some of this crud out of here, and get the differential cleaned up. You can see the differential is pretty crusty. It's been in there for a long time. All right, we can see the differential is still pretty greasy and crusty, and this here is probably why the seal blew out, and why it was leaking, because this is a vent on the top of the differential, and that allows the air as it gets hot to vent out. Well, that was plugged shut. That was crusted shut, and so that air pressure has to go somewhere, and so it takes a path of least resistance and blows the seals out. So at any rate, we're going to go ahead and take this out on the slab, pressure wash it, and then we'll start disassembling it to get those seals replaced. Now we've got to go ahead and make sure that everything is clean there before we go ahead and start popping the seals loose, because behind those two seals, I mean, once you pull that off, you've got the bearings and everything else, and you do not want to get any of this crappy gritty stuff into those bearings. You put them into those bearings, and if you got bearings that are in good shape, they'll be worn out pretty quick. If you got bearings that are worn but still serviceable, they will become unserviceable very quickly. So at any rate, we'll get it out, pressure wash it, and then we'll start tearing it apart. Okay, now we've got everything cleaned up. We got to drain the oil out of it. You may ask why I didn't bother draining it while it was still in the Jeep. And it's because the angle that the Jeep was set up at, it wouldn't have drained everything out of it. So we're going to go ahead. This is probably going to be funny to watch, so enjoy yourselves. But take an 1.1/8" socket, and oh, that's not going to work. Okay. Get an 1.1/8" wrench. So So I do believe that this is pretty close to 1.1 here. We're going to tip it up on its end like this. We can't get that thicker wall socket on it. This is much easier to do while it's inside the vehicle, that's for sure. And what I have found is that nifty little tool that they give you in the DIY works, but it doesn't work great. Alright. There we go, and we can let that drain for a little while. Now, one of the things that we want to look at here is we want to look at the drain plug. And there's a little bit of stuff, but nothing overly chunky, which is a good sign. I don't know how many miles this differential's got on it. It's the one that was in the Jeep when I got it, but I know the guy that had it before me, maybe in 30 years, put maybe 8,000–9,000 miles on it, maybe. Because he kept all of his, adventuring out pretty close to home. So at any rate, so I think the differential is going to be good enough that all we got to do is just knock the seals off and replace the seals. Okay, now we've got most of the oil dripping out. We're going to leave it sitting here on the pan, but we're going to go ahead and pull these yokes off. Takes a 5/8 socket. And yeah, we may have to get a big old crescent wrench on this to hold it. Ooh, that sucker's on torque pretty tight. Alright, looks like we're going to have to bring out the big guns. Alright, usually these M12 impacts work pretty good, but I think we're going to have to bring out the Big Daddy here. Yep. There it goes. And then we will get this removed. Oh, we may have to get a puller on that. No. Alright, now let's take a look at this. Take a look at that. There's a big ridge in that on that yoke. So we are definitely going to have to go ahead and put a speedy sleeve on this. But the kit that the military provides has a speedy sleeve on it. So let's see if we can get this knocked off of here. We're going to need to get a and there we go. Easy peasy. Alright, when you pull this off, see this little locking piece right here? You want to make sure that that stays in, and do not move this ring right here, because this is what's setting your bearing preloads, and that is the locking pin that locks it in place. So it looks like they've got that somebody went ahead and put a bunch of sealant on it when they put this thing back together the last time. Have no idea when that was done, but we're going to need to clean that up a bit. So when you're doing this, you just want to make sure you don't get anything down in here where your bearings are at. You can see how this, you know, kind of moves a little bit. You want to make sure you keep that locking pin or that locking key in place. And you see how you get little bits of shit down in there, little bits of schmutz. You want to go ahead and try to clean that out as best you can. We're, like I said, we're not doing a rebuild on this differential. All we're wanting to do is replace the seal, because the differential's still good. I mean, it howls, but you know, that's a typical 151. You know, my thought has always been is that if you don't like the gear noise on a 151, and I know some guys, they go ahead and put rubber mounts on there and everything else, but if you don't like the way a gear howls on a 151, then you probably shouldn't have one, because you're not going to completely eliminate that. At any rate, let's go ahead and get the kit out. I gotta knock that washer out of there too. Oh no, that's, never mind. So we're going to go ahead and put the speedy sleeve, install the speedy sleeve on this, and then try to get this side together. We're going to do both sides, but I'm going to show you one side, and then I can do the other side off camera. So this is the kit, and this kit comes with these speedy sleeves here. And it's basically a replacement wear sleeve. A lot of the 151s, you see, you've got a little replacement wear sleeve, and that little replacement wear sleeve is just going to press right on over this. So we're going to clean this up. You know, we've got a bunch of stuff down here at the bottom. We've got to get that all cleaned off. We'll get this cleaned up, and then we'll get the get this replaced here. Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, that's the wrong one. Never mind. That's for the pinion. This is the right one. All right. Let's make sure that the speedy sleeve fits in there the way it's supposed to, which it does. So now we're going to take this over on our press, and we're going to press this on so that it presses on nice and even. But like I said, I'm going to get some brake clean and clean the base of this thing up. Okay, we've got our speedy sleeve and our yoke here. We're going to go ahead and hit this with some brake clean. Get that cleaned off. And then we're also going to hit the inside of the speedy sleeve. And you'll notice, well, on this one here, there's an arrow. And now that I hit it with the brake clean, it took the arrow right off of it. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, guys. At any rate, there's an arrow. You can see the arrow on the speedy sleeve here. The arrow points towards this surface of the flange. You'll also notice if that arrow happens to come off, you'll notice that on one end of it here, you've got a little taper towards the end, and then on this and on the opposite side, if you can't see it, you can run your finger down it, and you'll see it it's an inside chamfer. The inside chamfer is going to go towards this end of the flange. So we're also going to go ahead and hit this with this Lock Quick primer. This stuff is like really old. So and what that's going to do is that's going to help with the Loctite that we're going to put on. The Loctite that we're using is a Loctite 609. It's a retaining compound. And so we'll put a little bit of this stuff right around the groove. You don't need to slobber it on too much, but right around the groove. Set that on there. Press it right on there until it is even with this surface right here. Alright, you're going to have a little bit of a gap there. Don't worry about it. But the Loctite is going to go ahead and help retain this on here, and it's also going to help seal this up so you don't get any oil seeping out through the speedy sleeve and then flinging all over the place. So that's all there is to it. Let's go ahead and get that seal put back on and show you how that's done. All right, now that we have this sealing surface cleaned up, we've got to make sure it's clean. That's cleaned up really well, and this area here cleaned up. We're going to take some of this stuff here. This is a anaerobic gasket maker. This is stuff that I prefer. It's not absolutely necessary that you use it, and the manual doesn't show using it at all, using any kind of sealant at all. But if you put just a little bit around edges there, and this stuff won't seal up. That's what anaerobic means. It won't seal up, or it won't set until oxygen is removed. And then you just take and make sure you get a nice light coating around the edge, you know, that's going to go there, and the top. Now I do not have, you can see what we've done there. Now I don't have the tool that the manual shows. The tool that the manual shows is a round tool, and it's going to locate on this surface here. You don't want to be beating on this raised surface here. So we're going to set that down on there, and we're going to get it started, kind of tapping on the edge, and then we're going to get a punch, something with a nice flat surface like that. And you'll just start going around and around until it gets fully seated all the way around. Like I said, only beating on the flat part there. And then you can go verify that everything is seated up there, which is good. And you'll take your yoke here, and what we're going to want to do is get a little bit of grease. Now, I've had this stuff around forever. Put a little bit of grease around the speedy sleeve. And if you can get it around on the inside of the seal here, this will help it to seal up when you first start driving it, because the seal's going to be dry, and you don't want it to be dry. You don't have to put a whole lot on there, but just, you know, enough, and then get it started. I like using dead blow mallets on this kind of stuff. You know, or a soft mallet, it really will help from, you know, keep things from getting all beat up. Now, we're going to clean up the threads on this, and we have to go find the torque specs. So let me go reconfirm the torque specs, and then we'll put that on there, and then we'll do the other side. Okay, now when I said that the manual doesn't call for any sealant, it actually does. And let's see if we can get this brought up right here. It says, note, apply compound sealer, and it gives an FSN to outer case of seal before installing in case. Okay, and then it says to using a flange holding tool, which I don't have, torque the side flange retaining bolts of 40 to 50 pounds. So because I don't have that, we're just going to use a big old pipe wrench here. Now the book says to torque it 45 to 50 foot-pounds, so we've got our torque wrench set to about 47. There you go. That's all there is to it. We'll do the other side. I'm not going to bother showing you doing the other side because it's pretty much the same as this side here. So we'll get that done and get this thing put back up into Ole Pvt Parts and get it filled with oil too. Alright, well, we've got the seals put in the differential. So the differential is ready to go back in, except for this. I don't know if you can see it, but this bolt right here must have either been loose at one point in time or something, because it is worn the threads flat. These two seem to be okay, but as long as I got to go down and replace one, we're going to replace all three of them. And we're going to have to replace the nuts too, grade 8 bolts. So we're going to go ahead and run into town real quick, get the bolts, because we need to get this differential put back in Pvt Parts tonight so that we can move them out of the shop and shut the door down. Alright folks, we've got new bolts. Had to go to 2 different hardware stores to get them, but which there's only 2 hardware stores in town, so had a 50-50 shot of getting it right the first one. So at any rate, we got new bolts, new washers, new lock washers. Let's get that differential bolted back in. Now we have gone ahead and cleaned the pockets out up in here. You want to make sure you clean all of the dust and dirt and little bits of rocks and grit and grime out of there, so that your washer and your bolt head have a nice flat surface and a nice clean surface to mate on. Because if you don't, what'll happen is with vibration, it'll cause the you know, anything that's, you know, dirt or anything that's in contact with the washer will end up getting crushed into powder and will end up loosening the bolt tub. So we've gone ahead and cleaned all of that out. We're going to drop our bolts down into each of the holes. We're just going to take this bad boy we're going to get nut in the washer in one hand, Believe me, this is not the best way to do this. All right, one bolt started. Two bolts started. And if I can explain what I did with that third lock washer. And there we go. We got all three of them started. Let's get these zapped home and get this stuff put back together. Get on there. All right, and there we have it. We have the differential put in. We still need to tighten this, fill this, put all this stuff back together. We're going to go ahead and time lapse that for you guys. there we have it. Everything's all tightened back down, put back together. And the only other thing we got left to do now is we got to fill it with gear oil and remove this tape. And then we'll be ready to go. Okay, the last thing we've got to do is pop this loose, fill plug loose, and fill it with oil. So now what I use is 85-140, just a good, 85-140 weight oil. I know the manual calls for it to be, a thinner weight, but this is what I got, so this is what I'm using, and it seems to work pretty good. We'll just pump it until it starts spilling out, and then put the lid on it real quick. We've jacked up the front end of Ole Pvt Parts here, get things kind of level. There we go. Spilling oil all over everywhere. And there we go. All right, folks. That's about it. All we got left to do is just pull him off of the ramps and get the tools cleaned up. But to give you an idea as to how long that took, I started working on this at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And right now it is 5:10, 10 minutes after 5. So that's with finding tools. That's with probably about 20 minutes to a half an hour of running into town to try to find bolts, and finding some of the various the Loctite and some of the other stuff that I use. So if you gather all the tools together to do this and have all the correct tools to do this, man, it won't take you long. It's nice having it up on the ramps like this, because it gets it up a little bit higher than jack stands will, and it kind of locks everything, especially with the when you lock the parking brake. It makes it a lot easier to tighten and to loosen up the bolts if you don't have wheels spinning and things like that. So, at any rate, I want to thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.